Welcome in the fifth episode. In the last episode we have implemented logic to define our shape. Today we will concentrate on displaying the same shape which we have in the editor in our game. If you want to help support this channel, hit the subscribe button below this video, turn on notification so you will not miss any future episode I release. Okay, so let's get started. So first of all, let's open our project and then let's go to our scripts folder, then go to the shape and then right click, create, C# script, and I will call this script shape square. Let's open the script. So first of all, let's remove the update method, and then let's remove the start method and all of the comments. And right at the top, let's add using statement. So using Unity Engine.ui. So now we can use the image. So let's create the variable public image, and then I will call it occupied image. And then actually let's add the start method. So void start. So in the start method, let's set our occupied image dot set active. Actually, we need to call the game object set active will be false. So right at the start, we're gonna deactivate the occupied image. And that's it for now for this class. Let's save everything. Let's go back to Unity. And now let's add another script. So inside our script's shape, I will right click, create C# script, and I will call this script shape. Let's open the script. Okay, and inside the script, let's first of all remove the update method, and then let's remove this comment. And we will need a few public variables. So first variable will be public game object, and I will call it square shape image. So this variable will be assigned from the editor and is going to be the prefab. Then let's put the attribute hide in the inspector, and let's put public variable, and I will call it shape data, and this is going to be our current shape data. So next let's add some private variables. So first one will be private list of the game objects, and let's call it current shape. Will be equal to new and then list of the game objects. Okay, so we need to initialize this list straight away. So now let's go below the start method, and we will need to create a few private functions. So the first function will be the get number of squares. So private int, and I will call it get number of squares, and we want to pass the shape data. Let's call it shape data. And what this function will do, this function will count the active squares. So if I quickly go to the Unity, and if I go to the resources, shapes, and then any of this scriptable object, you will see we have the array of the squares, and they can be in two states. The square can be active or deactivated. So the function we are creating now will count only the active squares. So the number of active squares in this case will be 4, and there will be 2 inactive. Okay, so let's go back to the Visual Studio, and let's actually implement this function now. So let's put int number will be equal to 0, and then for each, and we want to loop through the shape data dot board, and I will call this variable row data. Okay, and then inside this for each, let's call another for each, and we want to loop through the raw data dot column, and I will call it as variable active. Okay, so we want to basically loop through all of the squares which we define in the editor, and if the square is active, we want to increase the number, so we're going to call the number plus plus. Okay, and that's it. And we want to, at the end, we want to return the number. So this is the function we're going to use in a second, but before that, let's create another function. Let me switch back to editor again, to the Unity, and let me select the shape data again. So as you see, for specific shape, we have number of the elements, and when we actually going to display this shape in our game, we want to position every single square. Let's say for this shape, for this square, we want to move it by the half of the size of the texture size to the left. And for this shape, we want to move it to the right. So we have exactly the same shape. So now we need to calculate the X and the Y position for every single square. So that's what we're gonna implement now in our script. So let's switch back to Visual Studio and let's start to implement this. So right above this function, let's create another function, public float, and I will call this function get X position for shape square. And we want to pass our shape data, and let's call it shape data, int column, and then vector2 move distance. And now let's create a variable float, shift on X will be equal to 0f, and then if our shape data dot columns is more than 1, let's put the vertical, we want to check if our shape data dot columns modulo 2 is not equal 0. So if we have the odd number of the squares in one line, then we want to use this logic. Otherwise, we want to calculate position a bit differently. So this is our X position. So let's first of all get our var middle square index. Will be equal to, let's open the braces, shape data dot columns minus 1 divide by 2, and then var multiplier will be equal to, let's open brace, shape data dot columns minus 1 divide by 2. So it's exactly the same. And then if the column is less than the middle square index, so we want to move it on negative, move it on the negative position. So we want to shift on X to be equal to move distance dot X times minus 1, and then shift on X times equal multiplier. Otherwise, if the column is more than the middle square index, we want to move it on the plus side, and we want to do the shift on X will be equal to move distance dot X times 1, and then shift on x times equal multiplier. Okay, so this is if we have the even number of columns, and then otherwise, so let's put the else statement for this f. So else, and then we want to calculate the var middle square index 2 will be equal to shape data dot columns double equal sign 2. So instead of the using f statement, we're going to put the f statement in one line. So if this is true, we're going to set it to 1, and then otherwise we're going to set it to shape data dot columns divide by 2. So let's put another variable. So var middle square index 1 will be equal to, and then again shape data will be equal to 2, shape data dot columns will be equal to 2. If this is the case, we're gonna set it to 0. Otherwise, we're gonna set it to shape data dot columns minus 1. Okay, and then var multiplier will be equal to shape data dot columns divide by 2. Okay, so it's a bit different than what we did in the previous f statement, and let's actually implement this logic now. So if the column is equal to middle square index 1, or column is equal to middle square index 2, we want to put if the column is equal to middle square index 2, we want to set the shift on x equal to move distance dot x divide by 2, and then let's put another if statement. So if the column is equal to middle square index 1, we want to set the shift on x will be equal to move distance dot x divide by 2, and then times minus 1. Okay, so this is basically we're calculating how much we need to shift the specific square to make up the same shape, and this currently we're calculating the x position. Okay, and now let's put another f statement. So if the column is less than the middle square index 1 and column is less than the middle square index 2, so we need to move it on negative. Let's open the brace. We want to set the shift on x will be equal to move distance dot x times minus 1, and then shift on x times equal multiplier. Okay, and then otherwise if the column is more than the middle square index 1 and column is more than the middle square index 2, we want to move it on plus, and we want to set the shift on x equal to move distance dot x times 1. You don't have to put this times 1, but I'm just putting it to actually make this statement a bit clearer, and then shift on x times equal multiplier. So we have all of the calculation in place now. So hopefully you have everything right, the same as me. And then let's actually grab these braces, and we need to return this shift on X from this function, because this function returning the floating point value. Okay, so right at the last brace, we want to get return and then shift on X. Okay, so we have this function. Now let's implement the function to actually calculate the Y position now for every single square. So above this function, actually let's make this previous function to be private, not public, because we don't want to use it outside of this class. And then let's implement another function, private float, and then get Y position for shape square. And then we want to pass the shape data. Let's call it shape data. And then int row. And then vector 2. And this is going to be the move distance. Okay. And now let's implement this function to calculate the Y position. So let's first of all add the value float, shift on Y. Will be equal to 0f, and then we want to check if the shape data dot rows is more than 1. Let's open the braces, and then let's check if the shape data dot row modulo 2 is not equal 0. So if this is the case, we want to create a var middle square index will be equal to, let's open the brace, shape data dot rows -1 divide by 2. Okay, and then var multiplier will be equal to, let's open the brace, shape data dot rows -1 divide by 2. It's actually exactly the same, but just for the clarity, I like to define two different variables. It doesn't really matter because they're gonna go out of the scope once executing this this function. And now if the row is less than the middle square index, we want to move it on minus. We want to set the shift on Y will be equal to move distance dot Y times 1, and then shift on Y will be equal to actually times equal multiplier. Okay, and then otherwise, if the row is more than the middle square index, we want to move it on plus. Okay, let me scroll it. We want to set the shift on Y equal to move distance dot Y times -1. Okay, make sure you have this -1 and 1 correctly. And then we want to set the shift on Y times equal multiplier. Okay, and let's put another F statement for this F condition. So right at this brace, I want to put the else and open the braces. And let's start put this the other case. So var middle square index 2 will be equal to shape data dot rows. So we're doing pretty much the same as we did for the X position. Will be equal to 2 if that is the case. So question mark. We want to set it to 1, otherwise we want to set it to shape data dot rows divide by 2 and then var middle index 1, and again we want to check the shape data dot rows is equal to 2. If this is the case, we want to set it to 0, and then otherwise we want to set it to shape data dot rows minus 1. And then we want to calculate the multiplier. So var multiplier will be equal to shape data dot rows divide by 2. Okay, and now if the row is equal to middle square index 1 or row is equal to middle square index 2, we want to put if the row is actually equal to middle square index 2, we want to set the shift on y to be equal to move distance dot y divide by 2 times minus 1. Okay, and then let's put another if statement. So if the row is actually equal to middle square index 1, we want to set the shift on y to be equal to move distance dot y divide by 2. Okay, let's put another two if statements. So first one will be if the row is less than the middle square index 1 and row is less than the middle square index 2, we want to move it on minus. And we want to set our shift on y to be equal to move distance dot y times 1, and then shift on y times equal multiplier. Okay, and then otherwise if the row is more than the middle square index 1 or row is more than the middle square index 2, actually not or, make sure you put and here. Okay, so if the row is more than the middle square index 1 and row is more than the middle square index 2, we want to move it on plus, and we want to put the shift on y equal to move distance dot y times minus 1, and then shift on y times equal multiplier. Okay, so that's it for this function, and now we need to return our shift on y value from this function. So let's grab last, this if statement is ending here, so we need to put the return shift on y. Okay, so those two functions was a bit lengthy, and but we need to do this calculation in order to create our shape in the correct way, the same as we defined it inside the inspector. So now let's actually create a function to spawn our square. Right above this function, let's put public void, and let's put the create shape function. Create shape, and then we want to pass our shape data, and let's call it shape data. Okay, and this function will be responsible for creating the shape. So let's first of all, right at the top, let's assign our current shape data. So current shape data will be equal to shape data, and then let's create variable var total square number will be equal to get number of squares, and let's pass our shape data. So this is the function which we defined right at the beginning, and then let's put while the current shape dot count is less or equal total square number. We want to call the current shape dot add, and we want to instantiate our shape, our square shape image, and we want to instantiate at the transform, so we can pass the transform like that. Okay, so make sure you put the same, and then we want to instantiate it as a game object. So this function simply just adding the images to our list, and now we need to position those images to make our final shape. So in order to do that, let's put right below another for each, and we want to loop through the current shape, and I will call it square. And now let's call the square dot game object dot transform dot position will be equal to vector 3 dot 0, and then square dot game object dot set active will be equal to false. Okay, so we want to loop through everything and make sure the position is set to 0. And now below this function, let's grab our var square rectangle will be equal to square shape image dot get component, and we want to get a direct transform component. Okay, and then var move distance will be equal to new vector 2, and we want to put our square rect dot width times square rect dot local scale dot x. Let's put another line, and then the y value will be square rect dot height times square rect dot local scale dot y. Okay, and now let's put variable int current index in list will be equal to 0. And now let's put actually the loop to set position to form a shape, and let's put the for, and then var row equals 0. Row is less than the shape data dot rows, row plus plus and then let's put another for var column equals 0. Column is less than the shape data dot columns, column plus plus, and then if the shape data dot board at row dot column at column so if this is the active square, we want to grab our current shape at current index in list. Actually, let's make this n small. Dot set active true. Then let's grab our current shape at current shape index in list. Dot get component. We want to get our rect transform. Dot local position will be equal to, and I will move to the next line so it will be visible. New vector 2, not 3. Okay, and now we want to make use of our functions which we implemented to calculating the x and the y position. So let's call the get x position for shape square, and we want to pass the shape data. Then we want to pass the column, and then we want to pass the move distance. Okay, so this is going to be our x position, and for the y position we want to get our get y position for shape square. Let's pass shape data, then row and move distance. Okay, so as you see, we just nicely make use of those functions. And now at the end, make sure you put the current index in list plus plus. Okay, so that's it for this function. So this function will generate the square based on whatever we pass it in, whatever the shape data we pass in. And now let's create the last function for today, which will be request new shape. So right above this function, let's put the public void request new shape, and let's pass the shape data This function will just call the create shape, and we're gonna pass the shape data. Okay, and actually, just for testing for this episode, let's for now comment this height in the inspector attribute. So you want to expose this variable to the editor. We're gonna uncomment this in the later episodes. And now let's call this request new shape from the start method, and let's pass our current shape data. Okay, so at the start we're gonna just request the new shape. So we're gonna create the shape whatever we pass from the inspector. So that's it for this shape class. Let's save everything, and let's go back finally to our editor. And now inside our scene, let's go to under the canvas, and then right click on the canvas, UI image, and I'm gonna call this image square image. Okay, and then let's create another image. So right click on the square image, UI image, and I'm gonna call this image occupied image. Okay, and for the square image, let's go to our graphics, then squares, and you can select any color you like. But for now, I will just assign, for my square image, I will assign the red. And for my occupied image, I will just assign the red as well. Okay? So as you see, we have the red square created. Okay, so now let's select the square image. Let's go to our shape, to our scripts shape. And now let's grab our shape square script and drop it into this object. So I will drop it above the image. And we need to assign our occupied image. So occupied image, let's grab our occupied image and drop it into this field. Okay, so make sure the occupied image is indicating the occupied image. And now we can grab this occupied image and make sure it's deactivated. Okay, so make sure you have everything set as me. And then let's go to the prefabs folder. Let's grab our square image and drop it here. So we're going to create the prefab from our square image. Now we can select the square image and just delete it. So we have our square image prefab created, and now we need to create one more prefab for our shape. So let's right click on the canvas, let's create empty, and I will call this object shape. Actually, let's call it properly. And now let's go to our scripts, then shape. Let's select our shape, grab our shape script and drop it into the shape. Okay, and now we need to initialize those two variables. So the shape square image, this is gonna be our prefab. So let's go to the prefab folder and grab our square image and drop it into the square shape image. Okay, so make sure it's initialized. And then current shape data, this is something we're gonna assign by hand for now, but later we're gonna change this implementation. So for now, let's go to our resources, then shapes, and you can select any shape you like. So let's say we want to display maybe, I don't know, maybe this shape. So I will select the shape and grab my shape 5 onto the current shape data. So make sure this field is assigned. Okay, and now let's go to the prefabs and then let's grab our shape and drop it into the prefabs. So this shape should turn blue. Okay, and if you switch to the scenes view, you will see our shape is currently displayed in the middle. So let's actually change this position and move this shape to be displayed maybe here. Okay, so we're gonna have our grid displayed there and our shape displayed here. So now when you press play, let's see what's happened. As you see, we have our shape created. So if you go to the shapes, you will see the shape has created the 5 different squares, and 4 of them are enabled because this shape have 4 active squares, and if you try to enable another one, is displayed here. We're gonna change this implementation as well, so you will have just the active squares. Okay, so this is the shape. So this is this shape. Let's see if it's the same. It is. If we stop it, and then if you try to, let's say, put different shape in, let's say we want to put, I don't know which one, maybe this, shape 4. So if you select shape and grab the shape 4 instead of the shape 5, and then press play, you will see our shape 4 is created exactly the same as we have in the editor. So now you can create any shape, you can pass the shape to this variable, and you will see the shape in your game. So I think that's it for this episode. In the next episode, we're gonna concentrate to display the random shapes, and we're gonna create the class to actually handling the shape creation, so you will not have to grab our shapes by hand. So that's it for this episode. If you like this series, please consider subscribing to this channel and leave a like. Any issue with the implementation, please let me know in the comments below this video. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in the next episode.